Bonjour et bienvenue à LanguageFluent. Je m'appelle Muskan, aka The Smiley. I hope you all remember me. Welcome back, guys, to yet another exciting video of the course playlist Learn TEF in 15 days. And today we'll be discussing a very exciting video, namely reading comprehension, also comprehension des écrits. And we'll be discussing each and everything about reading. That is the first part of your TEF exam. So without wasting any time, let's proceed further. Last video we discussed the difference between DELF and TEF, and you might be clear till now that which exam you will be giving. Let's see. So guys, the structure of it goes like, first you have 60 minutes to cover up 50 questions. That means you have plenty of time to cover it up, right? And the points are 300 points. That means you cannot take this exam in fun. It is a pretty serious exam. The level goes by A1 to C1. That means the questions and the difficulty will always increase. And it will be a MCQ type. That means the paper will be pretty easy, right? Okay guys. Further, let's proceed on to CE structure, that is Comprehension des écrits structure. So this structure is divided into 4 parts. That means you have section A, B, C and D. And each of the sections have multiple questions in them. Like proceeding to section A, it has 10 questions each. And the objective of it is identifier un document. That means you have to identify the document. Le type de document, la fonction du document, l'origine du document. So here that means you have to identify the type, function and the origin of the document. And the types of questions that you'll be getting is message court, that means short messages, publicité petite annonce, publicities or small announcements, notice d'emploi, employment notices, cartes postales and postal cards. Moving on to section B, here you'll be having 25 questions and the objective goes out to be les intentions de l'auteur. You have to understand the intentions of the author, like what is he trying to say. Les arguments avancés, you need to understand the arguments that are thrown to you while reading. So if you see 3 arguments, you need to understand that what the argument actually means. Les allusions, you have to illustrate it in your own, like what does the author really means to say. Le style et registre de la langue, and what is the style and the way of saying out the message. And here the types that you'll be having is graphique, you'll be having a few graphs or statistical images. Article de press articles, and you will be required to read them and answer. Lettre professionnelle. Lettre professionnelle here means that you'll be having professional letters out of which you'll be reading and extracting out information to answer the questions. If we look further, the section C has 10 questions. And the objective goes out to be comprendre la logique de... So here basically you have to understand the order and what does the author is trying to say, the logic of it basically. And the types of questions that you'll be getting is texte à trous and texte dans le désordre. Let's proceed further to section D. It is the smallest section and you'll be having only 5 questions here. And the objective goes out to be comprendre le sens général d'une phrase et diverses manières de la formuler. Here you have to just understand the general sense and what is the message pretending to be. And here the types of questions that you'll be having is phrase à reformuler. That means you'll be getting a few phrases that you have to reformulate. Let's see the barème. Le barème basically represents the marking scheme. So, if you answer correctly, you'll be getting 1 point. Congratulations! If you do not answer at all, it's 0. And if there's a wrong answer, it's going to be 0 again. That means the good point is you won't be having any negative marking at all. Now that we have discussed all the difficulties, all the structure and how it's going to go like, let's come to a few advices that I have for you guys. So my very first advice would be, you should read the complete passage, the complete paragraph that you have in front of you rather than just jumping onto the questions and coming back to it. Why did I say it? Because it wastes a lot of time. It's always better to follow this strategy, that is, first you should go and read all the questions. Come back to the passage, read the complete passage. Again, go back to the questions and recapitulate them. And finally, go back to your passage, try to find the answers and fill them in. That is always helpful. My second advice here would be read all the MCQs that are given to you. Sometimes what happens is that you read one line and you see the question and you feel like that yes, you find out the answer to it. But please be careful, like if they are giving you the MCQ type questions, they will be similar. Sometimes I know you guys might just relate to it very well that all the MCQs that you read are closely related to each other. And when they're closely related to each other, that means you can get confused at that point. So it's always better to read all the answers that you have, all the MCQ types that you have, and then go to the passage and answer them. Third advice would be read all the questions. Why did I say it? When you read the passage, you come back to the question, you get excited that finally you have answered one or two of them. But then you realize that you have more to them. So it's always better to read all of them, then go to the passage, see the passage, come back to the questions and then try to answer it. You'll feel more confident and here the time would not lag at all. And the last advice here from me to you would be please recheck your answers. In the hurry, you tend to mark wrong options. And it's not right at all, guys. Trust me on that. I do not want you to spend 40 minutes, your good 40 minutes on something that you didn't even read properly. So it's always better to go check in all the MCQs, what options that you have checked, spare your 10 minutes for the last and do it this way. And this especially happens when you have long passages. Out of your temptation, you simply read out few lines and try to answer the few questions. But please take my advice here that it's always better to read it at 1 or 2 times minimum so that you can actually understand the sense of what the author is trying to represent. The questions can be tricky at times. Moving on to my next advice, it will be lisez tous les options de réponse à vous de répondre. Now, I don't want you to rush in any way. Kindly read all the parts of the MCQs that are given to you, like A, B, C, D. So if out of your temptation you feel like yeah, the first one is the answer, please don't do it. Read all of them. Sometimes the MCQ questions can be tricky and the invigilators are smart enough that they have framed tricky questions for you always. Let's see my third advice. Répondez bien à tous les questions. Sometimes you just get disheartened that yes, we do not understand what we are reading here, so it's better just to leave it. But please be careful, at least try to answer all the questions that are given to you. Even if you don't understand many of them or most of them, what you can do is, tukka hi maar lo yaar. What's the problem to it? Even anyway, you will be getting 0 point if you don't answer it. So what if your luck is on the point? And the last advice will be lisez vos réponses à vous de valider l'épreuve. By the end of your exam, you're so exhausted by sitting and you're writing everything down that you just feel like de do exam, just give it up. So why to do this when you've spent like good 60 minutes to answer those 50 questions? Kindly go back to them and read it again that what have you answered and if you have answered them correctly or not. Sometimes in a hush, you might just do this, that answer was A and you might have ticked B. Please be careful about this. Let's see a few tips and tricks that I have for you guys. My first tip here would be enhance your vocabulary. Now I know you'll say it sounds pretty easy to say that you should enhance your vocabulary, read more words, read more books every day, but that is practically impossible, right? So I'll give you one tip here, that is pick 10 to 20 words for every day. Like you used to do in your childhood, right? In English, you used to pick 20 words of English every day and do a dictionary, right? Do a dictation. This dictionary dictation will help you to make your own dictionary. How would that help? Suppose I have these 20 words for the day, I recapitulate them, make sentences out of them, learn their meanings, and I try to use it in my French vocabulary. When I do that, I'll enable myself to learn the meanings of them. And if I see them in my day-to-day vocabulary, if I see them in my exam, then I would be easily able to understand what is happening there, right? Second tip here would be, please try to focus on the global meaning. Now, what does this global meaning mean at all? Let's take an example that you have 5 paragraphs here. Okay, when you start reading the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, you understand that they are talking about a global idea. Like, suppose we have a paragraph that talks about environment. So, you totally know that they'll be talking about environment, right? They won't be talking about shopping here. So, it's better to relate to the global meaning so that you don't struggle with the literal translations. If the paragraph has 20 lines each, you can go and try to understand the global meaning rather than just sitting there and focusing on one line, that what does this word mean, what does this mean, what does this mean. Literal translation never helps, guys. Trust me on this point. And from this, I'll hop on to my third very important point, that is, do not use your online resources and dictionaries while practicing for your exam. Can anyone guess why did I say it? I'll give you 30 seconds for that. Now you can see a brain here, right? Brain that is stressing. So that is to create your mental stimulation according to that when you'll be taking your exam. Now, what does this brain depicts? That you are in a real-time practical situation. Like, imagine that you're sitting in your TEF exam and you don't have any resource like your computer, your PC, your laptops, your mobile phones, or just a dictionary. So it's always better to not use any resource while you're practicing for your exam so that you can actually see what is your level of language and you can appear and prepare for that accordingly. It really helps. When you're preparing at home, you get simply tempted to going to the resources. Like, if I take my example, I used to get so tempted to using a dictionary or using the Google translator, the Google bhaiya, right? The Google translator, to just simply go and search for the words that I don't know about. But trust me on this point, while you're referring to the Google bhaiya, he's always harming you but no one else. So it's always better to practice vocabulary on your own and create a mental environment where you actually feel like you're appearing for your TEF exam rather than switching on to Google translators or your dictionaries. I hope it helps. Okay guys, now let's see how are you gonna prepare for it. So my first point here for you guys comes out to be practice beforehand. Now you're gonna come at me and say, we already know it, Muskan, that we need to practice beforehand. What's so new in it? So let me tell you all one important thing, that reading only comes easy to those who prepare well in advance. That means you should go back to your question papers, practice 2 to 3 question papers well in advance so that you can get to know that how does the pattern goes like, in what order does it comes, and what type of language is there in this exam. And trust me on this point, the more you practice the reading, the more your time will improve and the more your vocabulary will definitely improve. And speed, I shouldn't count it at all, right? Second point, oh no, I think I covered second already, है ना? Like 2 to 3 question papers ahead. Yes, why did I pick it again? Because it is very, very important. Time is not that important, vocabulary is not that important until and unless you guys don't know how does the exam pattern follows. So it's important to practice 2 to 3 question papers well before ahead. Third point here would be mark all the difficult words. As I said before, that you should not search for the meanings while you're practicing for the exam, that mental stimulation, remember? So here, my point to you guys is mark all the difficult words that you feel like you don't understand at all, and come back to them once your question paper is finished or at least your reading is finished, so that you do not neglect those words. You might not know, they might come in your exam. So it's better to come back to them, mark them beforehand, and then understand their meaning. I hope you guys understood it well. Right. Okay guys, now that you have read this paragraph, let's try to identify the main ideas and the difficult words as I have told you earlier. So here in my paragraph, I can identify a few difficult words like tempête, télécrochet, entouré, bestiaire, permièvre, souvenir et envers. Now I'm pretty sure, or I might not be, that you guys know or might not know the meaning of them. So what to do while you're, in your mental stimulation and trying to assess that whether, at what phase you are on the exam. It's better to just mark them and leave them. I'm just marking all of them as of now. I'm not picking them up, I'm not focusing on them, I'm just trying to understand the global idea here. And in the end, when I've answered all the questions that were given, I'll come back to them, reread them, and see and find out their meanings from Google or your dictionary. I hope you guys understood how it goes about. Okay, further, I have a few more strategies for you that will help you a lot. The first one is read the title and directly shift on to the questions. Let's see an example. Like, here's the passage that we were doing earlier. I'll read out the headline for you. That is Le calme après la tempête. So here you can see this is the heading. Now I can relate that here we are talking about something related to tempête, or it might be a poesy, it might be a story. So I'll go to the questions, see the questions. For example, we have 3 questions here. I'll read them all, try to understand what is happening here, and then relate to the global meaning rather than focusing on to the paragraphs. My second advice or strategy here would be look for the main idea. If you look into the paragraph, it might have 100 words, or I'll take 150 words. So it is very important for us to extract the main idea, the context out of it, so that you can relate to the main global idea of the paragraph. Like, for example, I'll just pick 2 main ideas here that are ces albums, like we are talking about the albums. Or the third one I'll like to pick, or the second one that I'll pick here is de deuil amoureux. Maybe it's something related to love, related to relationships, so it can be anything, right? So I've extracted out 2 ideas that are the main concept of this passage. My third advice to you guys will be break up the reading into smaller parts. For example, here you can see you have 100 words or many words, okay? So I'll break it down into smaller paragraphs. Like, my first paragraph will start from Noël and it will end at rhinoceros. My second paragraph will start at comme and will end at bestiaire. The third one, I think I'll start from son quatrième and will end at en général. And the fourth one starts from largement and ends at tout contre. So this is how I implement my 3 strategies while reading. And trust me, it's gonna save a lot of time for you and your efforts as well. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's demonstrate, like you are in your mental stimulation phase where you're giving your TEF. Okay, so you have 1 minute to reread it again, and then I'll display the questions for you guys along with the timer, and you will have 30 seconds to answer them. Let's go. Alright, now here on the screen you can see these 3 questions. Let me read them out for you. Cet article présente une chanteuse qui change radicalement de style, utilise des sons électroniques novateurs, poursuit sa collaboration avec un groupe célèbre, souligne de ses influences artistiques précédentes. The second question, pour composer ses chansons, elle s'est inspirée du décès du proche, de sa rupture amoureuse, de ses souvenirs d'enfance, de ses débuts dans le métier. And the third question, as you can see on the screen, elle propose un album au ton émouvant, l'ambiance sombre, aux actions révoltes, l'atmosphère légère. You guys have 30 seconds to answer them. I'm waiting for you. Alright guys, the clock and the time is up. Let's see how many did you get right. So the answer for the first one is option D. Souligner ses influences artistiques précédentes. The answer for second question is C. De ses souvenirs d'enfance. And the answer for question number 3 is en temps émouvant. I know that sometimes you might struggle with them, but if you get at least 2 right, you guys are on the good track. Let's proceed with my advices to be careful for. The first one will be time management. As you could have noticed that I gave you hardly 30 seconds to complete these 3 questions. That means if you divide the time, it will be 10 seconds each. But it doesn't really mean that. It can be divided into 5 seconds, 10 seconds or 25 seconds each question. Okay? Second one will be the unequal difficulties. What do I mean by unequal difficulties? For example, the first question you found it very easy and you did it quickly. But in the second question you struggled somewhere. That means the difficulties within the questions is different. First question might be simple, the second can be comparatively difficult. The third is, here's an advice that I have for you guys. Question number 1 to 25 and 41 to 50 are bankable questions. What does bankable questions means? That they can be done easily and they should be done first because they are going to save a lot of time for you guys. Whereas we have 15 long questions in the end. These 15 long questions basically means that they should be done in the end. Why they should be done in the end? Because they will take a lot of time. First, you should cover the smaller sections and the parts so that you can complete the paper on time. So that is it for me, you guys. Further, in the next video, we'll have a few more examples and we'll study each and every example thoroughly. I hope you guys found this video pretty interesting and you learned something as well. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, au revoir, bisous bisous, and I'll see you in the next video. And do not forget to subscribe to the LanguageFluent channel. Au revoir!